Welcome to the What's Your Truth podcast, the show that not only showcases the best of independent artists, but also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. Today, I'm taking a drive straight off the edge of memory lane and down the rabbit hole that is my personal music history, because on the show with me today, I have one of the earliest and most impacting influences on myself as an artist, my high school jazz band teacher, Mr. Russell Owens. Now, I'll never forget how halfway through my junior year and at one of the lower points of my life, against policy and possibly his better judgment, Mr. Owens allowed me into the jazz band halfway through the year and without requiring me to be in the school orchestra as everyone else was required to do. In that half year, I went from being a wisecracking pain in the ass teenager to a much more sonically capable wisecracking pain in the ass teenager. But in all seriousness, it's true. I was a pain in the ass back in the day. Believe me, I still remember. But in all seriousness, well, your memory is kinder than my memory.
Oh, okay.
But in all seriousness, my time in the jazz band with Mr. O was truly where I went from being a boy to being a man as a musician. This is where I learned song structure and got proficient at reading chord charts. This is where I learned to improvise. And most of all, this was the genesis of a work ethic and level of professionalism that continues to pay off in spades with every project I take on. And let's not forget that Mr. Owens is an incredible musician in his own right. Aside from having the patience of a saint, he also has the chops of a bulldog as one of the finest trumpet players east of the Mississippi. And mind you, I've been to New Orleans and heard the music down there. Truly, I would not be half the musician I am today if it wasn't for this man. It's literally been over 20 years since I've been in the presence of this incredible individual, and I'm beyond thrilled to have him on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Russell Owens. How'd I do?
Hi there, Johnny. Great.
So good to see you again, Mr. Owens. It's been a long time.
Good to see you, and thank you for setting all this up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor. It truly is, and I meant every word of what I said. Seriously, I wouldn't be the music without you. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Well,
let's roll. Saying all that as you were going through all the different aspects of your high school career, I was thinking, wow, did we really accomplish all that in the jazz band at St. Joe's? But I guess we did. I was dedicated to that band, as you probably know.
No, you were. And I mean, my gosh, what a feat and a life work. I mean, you were there. How many years were you at St. Joe's?
44.
Boy,
it was really the only, I mean, as I worked there for 44 years, I had other little jobs. You know, I was working at UB for a little bit. I ran their jazz band for several years. And then I did some teaching, a jazz history course at, I think it was at Duville College for a couple of years. And, but I was there for 44 years. And it was the first job I had when I graduated from Indiana University. They had a magnificent placement department. And St. Joe's called me, and I came for the interview, and I got the job, and I never thought I would, but I did stay for 44 years.
Wow. And just the legacy you created there. I mean, it really is a legacy, you know? And I mean, I'm still in contact every once in a while. I'll come in contact with someone that was in jazz band. I was just talking to Pete Crawford the other day, and, you know, guys like that. And yeah, I mean, it left an indelible mark on all of us. It really did, you know? And I mean, I think it's important as part of this interview, and I really wanted to validate that because it really did, you know, and I owe a lot to you, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's roll into it, shall we?
Sure.
Excellent. So my first question for you is, how did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
I was I grew up in this town called Richmond, Indiana, which is a fairly small Midwestern town. There was only one high school in the town, but they had a great music system there. And like when you were in fifth grade, you could take an instrument in the summer band program. Then if you did well in the summer band program, you could keep on during the regular school year as you went through the grammar school days, junior high days, and then on into high school. And so, you know, I went that route. And then in junior high school, I really decided that I wanted to really practice and see what I could do. And one thing about me is I'm pretty competitive. I don't know if you know that or not, but I was with our band, you know, at St. Joe's. I wanted our jazz band to be the best I could make it to be. And you, as you remember, we went to a lot of these competitions. So I was that way personally too. And like in junior high school, I always saw, it seemed like where I went to junior high school, like you had like the upper class kids and kind of the lower class kids. And I was kind of in the middle lower class group. And I kept seeing all the upper class kids. It seemed like they always got the higher seats in band. And I sort of started questioning that. I said, well, it's not right. I'm better than a lot of those kids, but why do they get the higher seats? I said, okay, I'm really going to start practicing like crazy here until I get really, really good. So there's no question that I'm just one of the best trumpeters. So I did that, and every day I would practice, which was a lot for me at that time, a half an hour every day, just religiously, and I really excelled. And the band director started noticing it, and he pulled me out and said, "Wow, you." He pulled me out of class one day and said, "You're really making a lot of progress." I said, "Yeah, no, I've really been practicing." So I got moved up to first chair in the junior high school band, and then um, I continued playing. And then one thing that really inspired me too was in our town, there was a band. It was called, you can look this guy up on the internet. It was called Baby Huey and the Babysitters. Or wait, it was called Baby Huey and the Vets. And vet refers to Corvette. And
Oh, okay.
Baby Huey was this big black guy, great guy. His name's actually Jimmy Ramey. And he was called Baby Huey because he was pretty obese, I don't know if Baby Huey was a comic book character who was,
Hmm.
a giant obese duck. So anyway, so he had this band, Baby Huey and the Vets. So I went to see them one time, and they had a guy. I remember his name was Melvin Jones, and he played electric piano, and he played electric piano on all the songs. Then one song, he had a trumpet sitting on top of the electric piano. I thought, wonder what that's for. And so he picked it up, and they started playing the song Watermelon Man. I don't know if you're familiar with that song or not, by Herbie Hancock. Do you know that tune? Watermelon Man by Herbie
I
Hancock?
don't know that tune off the top of my head. I may have heard it, but it's not. I don't know it by name if I do.
Well, you'll have to check it out. But it's one of Herbie Hancock's first great tunes. It's kind of a classic kind of jazz rock type tune. Anyway, so when he played Watermelon Man, I thought that was the best thing I'd ever heard, and but I didn't know the name of it. So I remember I was too shy. I was very shy at that point. I was too shy to go up and talk to the band after. I was just in awe of the band, and so I was too shy to go up and ask him anything about what was the name of that tune. So I went to the local record store, and I went in there and I was humming the song, and they couldn't identify it. But one day I was at a friend's house, and he had the radio on, and they were playing the Woody Herman Jazz Band, and that band was playing Watermelon Man. I said, "Oh my God, that's that song!" I've been like for over a year. I've been trying to figure out the name of the song. So I went to the record store and I bought Watermelon Man, and I got on the 45. Back then they had 45, so I took it home and I just played it so much I just learned it, and I wrote down all the notes, as I was listening to it. And when I heard that song Watermelon Man, I said, "Wow." I mean, I was on the trumpet then, but when I heard this guy play Watermelon Man, it really propelled me to new heights, and I really got into playing the trumpet. And then I had other good things happen to me, in high school that um, kept me going. I went to Berklee College of Music when I was between the was year 11 and year 12, I think it was. Oh, and then even before that, like another great experience I had was, this was before I went to Berklee. Maybe I was in the between ninth and 10th grade, but they had this program at Indiana University. It was called the Summer Jazz Clinics. And
Hmm.
I started reading Downbeat magazine because they had like lots of pictures of people playing instruments. So this Summer Jazz Clinics at IU, I remember it was only, believe this or not, it was only 95 for a whole week.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So I asked my parents, they weren't wealthy. And I asked them if I could go to this summer jazz clinic for a week at IU at Indiana University. And they said, yeah, you can do that. And that was a fabulous camp. Like at that camp, we had um, Doc Severinsen came on our last day, and he gave a concert with the faculty band. And a bunch of the people from Berklee College of Music were on the faculty. I remember Ron Carter, who played with bass with Miles Davis. He was there. Um, Jamie Abersol was there. If you know him,
Huh?
his
Oh
play
yeah, I know
along
Jamie.
recordings. And every night they would have a faculty concert with all these different all-star faculty people. And so I went to there, and that that was really just so inspiring for me. And then the next summer after that, I actually was lucky enough to get a scholarship through Downbeat Magazine for and it didn't pay for much, but paid for a little bit. And I appreciated my parents like being willing to let me go all the way to Boston and fly there to Boston from Indiana to Boston and spend 6 weeks at Berklee College of Music. So that was really a great experience. So those things really got me uh, into music.
Wow, man, what a backstory. That's incredible. And that's so great that your parents supported you too. That's and obviously I know you're a parent, and so I'm sure from
Right.
the parent you understand supporting that, but it always blows my mind how some parents really don't nurture their kids as much as they should when it comes to the arts particularly. So that's so great that you had that your whole life. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very
I was very fortunate, John, to have that.
definitely. And what was the first experience you remember having with music?
Wow. You mean like the first time it really just kind of turned me on and got
I
me
mean, the
lit up?
first time you remember ever having even a perception of music as music, like the first experience you remember having in any way with it.
Well, I mean, um, of course, just hearing it on the radio, and uh, back when I grew up, like there was a lot more of a variety on of music on the radio, and there's a lot more variety of music on TV. I mean, it was great. Every Sunday night was the Ed Sullivan Show, and man, he had an incredible variety of music that I remember just like really enjoying that. He would have like operatic sopranos. I didn't quite understand the beauty of that at that particular time, but he would have he had of course he had the Beatles on there, and then he had Count Basie, he had Duke Ellington on there, he had James Brown on there, he had the Rolling Stones on there. I mean, such a variety of music that people were exposed to. It was just a great thing for America, and a great thing to showcase the arts. I don't think they had any, not to my knowledge. Of course, there's so many different stations now, but I don't think there's any uh, place you can go to where you get that variety of music offered to you.
Yeah, it's true. The music, and I mean, there may be shows like that, but you're right. It's become very homogenized. I feel like the pop has dominated so much that even within among the different genres, what makes it through the filter, it all kind of has the same
Oh,
production value. It's all very similar in a lot
yeah,
of
you
ways. So you're
said
totally
keywords
right. I
there.
mean,
What makes it through the filter? That is so
yeah,
true.
it's true. And I mean, you're right. Like, I mean, I've watched some of those old Ed Sullivan episodes, and I was a big Doors fan, so I've seen like when they were on Sullivan,
Oh,
and I know that was super controversial too at the time, but yeah, you're right. There was just a much greater variety. That's so true. I mean, even in terms of what's on the radio now, even though there's different genres of radio, it's like there's so little variance in production value for what really makes it into the mainstream. So, who are the biggest influences on your work and why?
um, well, I mean, one thing about me is I've always I can't say I really enjoy every kind of music. I mean, I don't feel like every kind of music has much value, but I mean, at least to me, it has value. It must have value to someone, which is good. But so you're asking me who influenced me most, or who music wise, or
Anything. It can be a who or a what. Just what's been well, actually, yeah. So who are the biggest influences on your work? That's right. I did say who. So yeah, just two
oh,
artists, people, anything. It doesn't even have to be a musician necessarily. Just who has been the biggest influence and why.
yeah, well, um, a lot of different people. I would have to say. I when I was very young, there was a person I used to see on the TV. Again, the exposure that you could get to different musicians by watching TV. But I remember there was a man. you may not have heard of him, but he was from New Orleans. His name was Al Hurt, and he played trumpet.
Oh, okay.
And he had a song called Java. And I remember I was taking music lessons. I got the sheet music for that, and I had my teacher teach me the song Java. So he was an early influence. And then I remember also, like, back when I was growing up, there's a man who's still making music today named Herb Alpert. And he had a
Yeah,
group
yeah.
called the
I've heard of
Tijuana
her. I know.
Brass.
Mm-hmm.
But his first song he had was called The Lonely Bull. And it started with like that fanfare that they always play at the bullfights in Spain. And then it goes to a nice little melody. And that was a pop hit. And I heard that. And I went to the local music store and I got the music for that and played that. And then I started getting into, as I was going to this IU summer jazz clinics in Berkeley, I was getting exposed to people, a little more, uh, not quite pop artists, but still, of course, great artists like Miles Davis and
Mm-hmm.
people like that. And I often too, like I say, I was enjoying a variety of music. I was always influenced too. I didn't grow up in a community where this was played, but I would hear it on the radio of Afro-Cuban music. Like one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I heard that really, again, that tune, Watermelon Man, that was the version I heard of that was by this guy named Mongo Santa Maria. And he was a congero, conga player. And he that's the version of Watermelon Man I heard, and that really also not only did turn me onto the tune Watermelon Man, but I really liked the Afro-Cuban, the complexity of the rhythms and the layering of the rhythms, and so that was a great influence too. And we always at St. Joe's, I always tried to uh, program that for the bands. We always were working usually on a couple like Afro-Cuban things, and I also tried to make sure that we were playing them in an authentic way, not just saying, "Oh, here's a cowbell, here's a that Latin toy." Just make some Latin noise. I really wanted to make sure that we were playing things in an authentic way. So, a lot of just musicians did influence me, and a lot of big bands too. Like I like all the great trumpeters. Being a trumpeter myself, like
Mm-hmm.
Miles Davis, and then you have he's one end of the spectrum. Then you have like virtuosos like Maynard Ferguson, and so a lot of different people. And I grew up, and my mother's, she we heard a lot of music growing up in the house. You know, all kinds of music, and then back then too, like we've been talking about, there's more variety of music played on the radio. Like top 40 was all kinds of things. It was, it could be something like an instrumental thing, like the Lonely Bull or this Albert Java, but at the same time, the same top 10 list, there'd be something by the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm.
So there was such a variety and so many ways to be inspired. Uh, Hopefully, kids nowadays. One thing that's for the better now, I think at least in some schools, not all of them, in some schools, music education is really faltering, but in some schools, the jazz band movement in schools has really picked up a lot.
That's good to know. Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I
yeah,
didn't realize that because, like you said, I know in a lot of schools the music programs are very lacking. That's really great to hear, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And then, what has been the most rewarding experience for you as a musician?
Hmm. Um, well, just knowing that I was really, and I think about this a lot. I always was like trying to be a better and better band director and a better and better trumpet player. And maybe sometimes I feel like I didn't reach my goal as far as how I wanted to achieve as a trumpet player. But one thing I feel really good about is like my whole life I was able to, make a living, buy a home, raise three kids, just doing musical things. Um, that means a lot to me, and I was lucky. Not everyone is so lucky to be able to do that.
Absolutely true. And that's incredible too. I mean, man, what a legacy. And it shows, it taught your kids and your family too that you can take something you're passionate about and you can create a life with it. I think that's an incredible lesson.
Yeah, yeah. And I was lucky, like, as I told you earlier, like when I was working at St. Joe's, I had like a little other side jobs, but I was lucky that they were all related to music. I gave a lot of private lessons, and I played in bands in Buffalo, where I was able to earn some income, and even more important than earn some income. I mean, I had so much fun, and it was after being with the students all day, which I love doing that. I love working with the students, and I love the fact that I know what a lot of them are doing now. And in addition to that, I was able to just get out and play with some other adults, where we could really get through music and without having to rehearse it over and over and over again. Like sometimes I have to do at the, high school level.
Sure, makes total sense, and I have a lot of reality on that too. Even among the adult musicians out there, there's certain bands where there's just more intensive care needed to get people. I mean, I'm a music director of some bands, and some of them were easier to get through the material than others. So I can actually appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What risks, if any, have you personally taken for the sake of your music?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I was so um, lucky. One time I read this book. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of it. It was called it was by someone named, was it Stuart Brand? It was called The Power of Money or something. But anyway, so I read this book, and it was kind of a different approach to making a living and living your life and making money. And in that book, I remember there's a chapter on right livelihood, it was called. And the tenor of that particular chapter, right livelihood, was that if you're on the right path, money will come to you. You'll be able to um, make money and exist, and you know uh, maybe even have enough to have a life with some extras in it. So when I read that chapter, right livelihood, I just kept that. I never forgot that chapter. I mean, it's been like 40 years ago since I read that book, but like I was lucky here in Buffalo that like as I taught at St. Joe's, things just came to me. Things just opened up. I a lot of students wanted to take private lessons from me, and that was income. And then like different bands, just the doors started opening for different bands, and so I was living the right livelihood. I was on the right path, and doors just um, opened up for me. I don't know if that would work for everybody, but it worked for me, and that was an interesting book.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like it. And again, I think that's a really good message too. Like, and I think that is actually a truism almost of the universe. Like if you're really your integrity's there and you're doing what really is important to you and matters, I mean, opportunities can definitely have a way of kind of finding you a little bit as long as you're staying true to that. And
Hmm.
obviously there's a lot of people get stuck on money, hung up on money. Money's an issue for people, but money's never a why either. I don't think it's never the real motivation. And I think as long as you stay on your more higher purposes and motivations, I think you're right. I think that income happens. You just got to really stay on whatever the path is that makes sense to you. So I think that's really beautiful, actually.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Like I said, I can't guarantee that that would work for everyone, but I was lucky enough that it worked for me.
Awesome. And then what is one thing about you that would shock everyone to know?
Mm. Oh boy, I don't know if I'd want to say. um, oh, I one thing about me that would, well, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm a Christian spiritual person. I don't know if that would shock everyone or not. It might. Um, but other than that, I can't say I have an arrest record or a DUI or anything like that. Thank
Well, and that's
God.
no, but it's true. And
Knock
I'll
on
be
wood.
honest, like, yeah, and I mean these days, honestly, spirituality seems like it's on the decline in a lot of parts of the world. So that well might shock some people, and that's awesome. Again, that's a really, and I think, I've always been of the mind that music and spirituality, they're not really mutually exclusive things. Music is
Oh,
incredibly
right.
spiritual, So
Oh,
I
yes.
think that's really, it's great to make that point. So,
Hmm.
what is the one thing or the one tool that you absolutely cannot live without as an artist, and why?
As an artist, well, I mean, I play trumpet, and so I couldn't live without the trumpet. I wouldn't want to have to depend on my voice. So just having the trumpet and having access to other musicians. Now that I've retired, I've been retired for 6 years. I mean, one beautiful thing about it is like I really uh, I see people that say, "Oh, are you still playing trumpet?" I said, "Yeah, more than ever." Like during the pandemic. I mean, I know some people say, "Oh, it's so boring, so boring." I was not bored at all. I practiced. Every day I was practicing. I practiced like maybe 4 hours a day. And I was just loving it. I had so many books, and now I have so many online trumpet methods. I mean, I have like a virtual music library of trumpet music, and so I really enjoyed all that practice since I've been. Now the pandemic's over, but I'm still practicing a lot, and I'm playing in several different bands. Um, there's not a lot of work for the band because most of the bands I've been playing with now have been like they're like big band jazz groups, and there's not a lot of work for those kinds of groups. I think, and maybe you've experienced this too. I think some of the clubs or bars, I think they're kind of still reeling from the pandemic, you know,
Yeah,
uh, financially. They're not always willing to take chances and
that's
bring
true. And I
people
mean,
on.
and some of the clubs just straight up disappeared too. Some of them just aren't there
Well,
anymore.
that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. And then, so what has been the most difficult piece of music for you to create, and why?
The most difficult piece of music for me to create.
Yeah.
Um, well, I'm at a point where I can really read music. I can read almost anything at sight because of all my years teaching. And as I said, now that I've retired, I continue to challenge myself and try to find interesting uh, pieces to play. But what's really challenging is for me to take a tune, and I know this is the case for like tons of musicians, a really complex tune, like what a bebop tune, like uh, Charlie Parker tune, and try to play those changes accurately and try to improvise an intelligent, interesting solo. I mean, that's a challenge for me, and that's what I still want to. I still I still want to spend more time trying to improve my ability to be able to improvise over complex chord changes, and that's a challenge for all musicians, I think.
No, it's true. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, obviously, I was in the jazz band. I would never purport to, or I would never be so audacious as to refer to myself as a jazz musician, because as much as I know, I've not even scratched the surface of what the jazz musicians, guys like you, can do. So it's an incredible thing to, and a big challenge. You're right, to be able to really know that stuff enough and have enough, know it conversantly enough to be able to improvise over that stuff. I mean, I remember we did a Bird Parker song when I was in jazz band. I can't remember for the life of me which one it was, but I do remember that it was not by any means straightforward. it was challenging even just to make it through the chord chart, and I can only imagine what improvising over it would have been like.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Although nowadays, one thing I might throw in is there's some people on the internet on YouTube that have some really, they're really good educators. And I watch, some of their presentations on YouTube, and I really learned a lot, from listening to these people. There's a guy has jazz duets, it's called, and there's another guy from England who uh, presents stuff to help you with improvisation. So there's some really good, worthwhile stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, no, YouTube. I mean, I can't even imagine if I had YouTube when I was in high school, how much of a
Oh
difference that would
yeah,
have made. It's wild. It's really wild. So if you
yeah.
were going to write oh, go ahead.
Yeah. One other thing though, just I might throw in about YouTube as
Yes, sir.
still it's great and you can learn so much, but also you can't substitute working with a real. Sometimes you get to the point where you need to work with a real teacher, with a real person, and have that interplay that interplay and that exchange that you can't really get from YouTube.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. I mean, YouTube is obviously all one-way flow. You're just receiving information, but you're totally right. When you're working things out, you need to work them out with another person that's senior to you and knows how to help you through that. That's 100% true.
mhm.
Absolutely. So if
Yeah.
you were going to write a book about your career up to this point, what would you title it?
Um, what would I title it? Um, I would just entitle it "Don't Give Up."
Awesome. I love that. And then another fun question here. What are your plans for world domination?
For world domination. My personal plans for that. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, I guess I'll just keep practicing. Um, like Pablo Casals, the great cellist. He was
Hmm.
still practicing at 95, and they said someone asked him, well, and of course he was a world class artist, and someone said, well, why are you still practicing every day? And he said, I have great hopes that I'll get better. Um, so I guess for world domination, I'll just keep practicing till I get so good that people will be in awe, and they'll just want to know everything about what I think people should do to improve life on the earth here.
Wow. That's a pretty damn good purpose. And then my last question, Mr. Owens, and just to revisit my introduction. So the show is about not only showcasing independent artists, it's about exploring what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. So, Mr. Owens, what's your truth?
What's my truth? What inspires me? Well, I think like if you really have the mentality of an artist and it's really for you, it just comes over you and you don't know why it's happening to you. You just feel this desire and this need. And it's just part of who you are. You don't have to say, I'm going to be a uh, excellent musician, and here's why I'm going to be an excellent musician. Here's why I feel the need to be an excellent musician. It just comes over you, and you kind of don't have much control over that, and some other artists I've known, like people I've known personally here in the Buffalo area, like one thing I know is, and this has been me to a certain extent, but I know some people have really lived this way. Um, they don't let anything get in the way of their art. It it just propels them in every way, um, and that's what if you don't feel that propulsion or that need, you know, I don't think you'll ever be able to really make it in the arts. It's because
Yeah,
it's, as you know, it's difficult.
it is an uphill battle a lot of the way, but I think you're so right. Like, it's not so much of a thought process as a way of life as far as being an artist, and I think that's almost an indication. Like, if somebody after a certain point is trying to think their way through it and logically establish why they're doing what they're doing, either they need to just knock that off, or maybe it's an indication that maybe that's not their path, because yeah, the artists that I know, especially the ones that either, even if they don't make it, the ones that are just always doing it, they don't think, like you said, it propels everything they do in life. And what a great viewpoint, and thank you for saying that. That's a big part, I think, of the game that a lot of people don't necessarily, they're not aware of. And that's totally true.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, wow, Mr. Owens, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I mean, it's just really
Well,
great to reconnect with you. It's been so long, and I mean, you're a big part of my life and who I am as an artist and as a musician, and it means a lot that you were willing to do this and come on here. It really it does, and you know, I remember how I was back in the day, and I'm sure I appreciated it more than I might have let on at the time. But even in retrospect, like looking at how much of an impact the time working with you made, it really, I have nothing but admiration and appreciation, honestly. Like, thank you so much.
well, thank you for your kind words, and it's inspiring to me to hear that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you just, you kind of just tend to forget, uh, that maybe you have impacted people's lives in ways you don't realize. So it's nice to hear that, and so thanks for saying those things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So before we do end off today, I did want to take 60 seconds and just open the floor to you if there's anything you wanted to plug or promote, 60 seconds of everything, Mr. Owens. Floor is yours.
No, I'm not. I haven't written any books or made any recordings or anything like that. So I just uh, I just wish anyone out there who feels that they're compelled to be an artist, I just wish them the best luck in the world, because, as I said, it's not easy. I had a steady job working at St. Joe's Cleveland Institute as a music director. I had that to always kind of propel and keep me going, and keep me you know financially able to support my family, so I could do gigs on the side and other things that I wanted to do. So I was very lucky to have that. So I wish our culture was that, but you can't be pessimistic. You got to keep your optimism. But I wish it were just a little more attuned to artists out there, and created, and then there were paths to make it a little easier for artists. But you just got to take the way things are is the way things are, and you just got to keep on. Like I said, don't give up.
Absolutely. And that is a beautiful ending to this interview. Again, thank you so much for being here. And for everyone
Mhm.
else, this has been the What's Your Truth podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Later.
Yeah, you follow your own rules and you preach them unto me. But you don't think before you act, and you ain't got no business with me. No. But tell me what's your truth? Oh, what's your truth? Now you got down on your